My name is Louise Dente, and I welcome you to yet another edition of Cultural Caravan. On this edition, we're honored to be joined by internationally known jazz violinist Regina Carter. Welcome to Cultural Caravan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, you know, I admired your work, and for those who may not be too familiar, please tell us a bit about your early upbringings and your influences.
Well, I was born in Detroit, Michigan, and my mother felt that music was very important for my older brothers and I to be exposed to music and to take music lessons. Her mother graduated from Morris Brown University in 1915 with a degree in pedagogy for piano. So the talent gene, or the gift of music, it skipped my mother, but I got it, and we all took music lessons. And when I was 2, I started piano. But my piano teacher felt I was too young because I always wanted to compose my own pieces and bring them in. So when I was 4, the Suzuki method for strings was introduced in Detroit, and it was perfect for me because I had a gift to be able to hear and repeat what I heard musically. And that's how they teach. The Suzuki method teaches you to repeat music. They play for you and you repeat it before you learn to read music. So it's the way we naturally learn to speak a language at home. And my mother enrolled me in Suzuki violin, and I loved it. And I still took piano lessons again. I think maybe when I was 6 I started back up. But I just really loved playing violin, and played through high school. I went to Cass Tech High School, and they had a great music program there at the time. And I was part of the Detroit Symphony Youth Orchestra. And then I went to, once I graduated from Cass Tech, I went away to New England Conservatory in Boston. But I had a very thorough musical education growing up in Detroit.
Wow. And you know, in terms of that whole journey from the early exposure to music through a family that was musically inclined to actually making a decision to select the violin, to actually go into it professionally, when did that happen in your life?
I knew pretty much early on that I wanted to be a professional musician, a professional violinist. My mother on Saturdays, as part of my lessons, taking European classical music, we got discount tickets or free tickets to the symphony. So pretty much every weekend my mother took me to hear the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. And I had master classes with the famous violinist Itzhak Perlman, and also with Yehudi Menuhin. And so I loved music so much. I feel like music chose me, and I knew it was something that I had to do and wanted to do. So it was just that drive was there.
Wonderful. Now, I know that, you know, and just in terms of just getting a sense of your work, I understand that you were, you know, you spent some time in Europe. That you were part of a quintet, an all-female quintet known as Straight Ahead in 1987. Tell us about that experience.
Well, after I graduated from college, I transferred to Oakland University after my 2nd year, and I graduated from Oakland University. And I used to sit in a lot of clubs during my college years there and play with a lot of jazz musicians. But I always wanted to go to Germany. I don't know why. I had a fascination with Germany. Went for a vacation and ended up staying for 2 years. So after my 2nd year, I thought, okay, I have to make a decision. What am I going to do? And I came back home, and I got a phone call from a woman named Mickey Braden, who's a fabulous vocalist who used to live in Detroit. And she asked if I wanted to be a part of this group, Straight Ahead All Women's Group. And so I said, yeah, I thought it would be a great idea. but I told them I would be leaving in 2 years to move to New York. Mickey actually beat me moving to New York. But I worked with them for years. We recorded 2 records on Atlantic together, and it was a really great experience for me because we rehearsed pretty much every day. And bands don't even have time to do that now, but it gave us a chance to grow musically together, chance to work on whatever, whether it was composing or playing together or what have you. It just really gave us a strong foundation as a group.
Now, at some point, I understand, I guess in 1995, you decided to move off on your own, and you actually had your first solo album, okay? And then later on, I understand one of your albums you dedicated to your mother, entitled Something for Gracie. Tell us about that experience. What made to move on to do a solo career?
Well, a lot of that was determined by my move to New York. It was difficult because living in New York, I had to work to pay the rent. So, you know, I had a lot of gigs from musicians that were in New York calling me. So sometimes I wouldn't be able to make a gig. If I accepted a gig in New York first, I couldn't accept a gig with Straight Ahead. So it became more and more difficult. So we all thought it was best that I just move on. And the part of the contract with Atlantic was that every member, we couldn't just leave. They had first dibs on us as a solo project. So my first record was a solo record entitled Regina Carter, but the second record was dedicated to my mother, Something for Grace. And I wanted to give her her flowers, so to speak, while she was still alive. And most of the tunes on that record, and also the very first record, were pretty much originals. I think I had 1 or 2 covers on that record.
Wow. Now, you're originally from Detroit, and the next one of the other pieces was Motor City Moments.
Right.
Tell us about that work that you did.
Motor City Moments, I wanted to pay tribute to my city, Detroit. I think Detroit has gone through, you know, just, it was one of the first places in the United States that started suffering once the automotive industry started moving out. But when I was growing up there, it just culturally was a very rich city. I mean, you had people migrated to Detroit because of the automotive industry and because of Motown Records. So I was surrounded and introduced to cultures without having to leave the United States, right there in Detroit. The music scene, whether it was classical European music, Motown, the jazz scene, thriving music and art scene. So I felt like I really got so much out of that city, and I wanted to pay tribute to the city. So Motor City Moments was my way of doing that. And I chose either tunes that were written by Detroiters or tunes that represented a very special time in my life growing up there.
Now, in terms of looking at how you've actually taken your art and used it as an exploration of your personal story as well as our collective story, the work that you did in terms of Reverse Threads, which notably focuses on exploration of African heritage. Tell us about that. What made you move into that musically in terms of how that impacted you?
Well, ever since I was a child, I wanted to know from where I came, you know, where my family history. And growing up in the 60s in Detroit, I didn't see anyone that looked like me on television until one day I remember seeing Cicely Tyson do an interview. And I was so struck. I thought she was so beautiful. And I felt some kind of connection there. And so as an adult, after I received the MacArthur Award, I decided to use some of that money to try and start digging, and I went on Ancestry.com, had my DNA test done, found out I was 73% West African, then another percentage, 13% Finnish, and something else. But I wanted to try it and find some of the music. Who am I? Why do I play the way I play? Why, you know, what can I trace that to? So I went to the World Music Institute in New York, and someone handed me a CD of the Ugandan Jews, which I never knew there were even Jews in Uganda. And the field recordings were so beautiful, and from that, I was so curious. I just started researching music from different areas of the continent, and there's just so many cultures, and there's so much music that I couldn't even begin to scratch the surface. But I chose music that that I felt some sort of connection to, or that I felt just really hit me when I first listened to it, and put those recordings together on reverse thread. And what I heard, what was important for me when I was researching and listening to the music, was sometimes I'd hear music from the continent that sounded like Irish music, or I'd hear something that sounded very much like it was from Cuba or somewhere else. And it was just seeing how we're all on this planet, how we're all connected, and how we all influence one another, whether we want to be connected or not. And so that was the whole premise behind reverse thread, that if you have a shirt or a garment and you pull on a thread, and you keep pulling it, it comes apart. That's the whole. So we're all a piece of that garment.
Wow. And in terms of just what you see music as a kind of a healer, but also bring together, how has the reaction to your music been as you've traveled the globe?
I've had very positive reactions to my music, and from the start when I was recording, even the first record, some people at the labels, record labels will say, well, your music is kind of all over the place. And I said, but that's how I grew up in Detroit. You know, I heard Motown, the Beatles, the European classical music, world music, because all music is world music, but music from these other cultures that were there living in Detroit. So all of that is a part of me. And I don't want to box myself in. The industry is going to try and do that already. They have to in order to sell. But so I think because the music is honest, I'm not trying to please anyone. It's my own curiosity, it's my own journey, and because I think I'm honest about it, then people have a very positive reaction to the music.
Exactly. Now, in line with that, you also, in looking at your current work, Southern Comfort is also an extension of you telling your story, in this case a more personal story of your Southern roots in Alabama, and then your family experiences, and also the introduction of and also the African continent in terms of the use of African instruments such as the kora. Tell us about that journey in terms of preparing or putting together Southern Comfort.
Well, with Southern Comfort, I knew more about my mother's side of the family always. I didn't know that much about my father's side of the family. I knew that my grandfather was a coal miner in Alabama. He had passed away before I was born. So this was my opportunity to really try and find out more information. And again, through Ancestry, I was able to connect with other trees, other relatives' trees, and find out information. And reconnect with some relatives that I hadn't spoken to in many years. And when I started doing the research, just delving into my father's family, I thought it would be really interesting to hear what was some of the music that was happening during that time. And I went to the Lomax collection, John Work III, Professor Ferris, William Ferris, helped put me in touch with different people. People would suggest books to read. So it was interesting to hear some of the coal mining music, or music that was going on at that time, and I could relate it to my family or places they had lived. All of the music doesn't directly have a connection to my family per se, but it's music of other neighboring states. And just using some of the instruments that, like the kora, of course, which was the harp, I used that in reverse thread. So on this record, it was guitar. And I used of course, the drum is from originally an African instrument, and having accordion. There were accordions in Africa. So it was really amazing a couple of years ago, my husband and I went to the World Instrument Museum in Arizona. And each room you go to, you see how these instruments, where they started, or what they were, and the connections that we have.
know, it's interesting. I've had the opportunity to recently witness you doing a performance at Carnegie Hall for children and families, and just the excitement in the faces of the children as you were just playing the music with your wonderful, quartet, but also introducing them to music and the cultures that the music came from, and just the response. So just seeing how music is a powerful teaching instrument, a powerful healer, and also just the way in which you are able to use music to educate and heal. So that's something in terms of engaging young audiences and audiences of all over the world. And let's talk about you as an educator. I know you've done workshops, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, my mother was a kindergarten teacher, so I would watch her often as a child teach, and I thought for a minute I wanted to be a teacher, but I think we're all teachers. And so I go, sometimes if I'm playing in a city, playing a club or at a concert hall, they have outreach activities. And so I'll go into a university or elementary school, or sometimes I work with audiences that are non-musical audiences. And I've also gone into hospitals or nursing homes and either play music, talk about the function of the instruments. I think it's extremely important for young children because, as you know, we don't have music in the public schools anymore.
Yes.
And I had that growing up. And so if you don't have the means to pay for that, then you're not going to be exposed to it. And I think music is so important for us to have. Studies have shown it helps children to concentrate. It helps them to listen, how to focus. And so it's not about necessarily being a professional musician, but just being exposed to it and the health benefits that it can have.
Wow. And you're so right, because it is so important, and I think we hope that those, in the influence could see the power of music, and particularly having artists such as yourself there to really educate and inform and give children that direct touch. Now let's talk now about the business of music. Being a female artist who's been in the business for a number of years, who've basically been able to continue and work, tell us about some of the challenges and triumphs of being in the industry.
Well, it's interesting. I think there's challenges and triumphs. There's challenges with anything we're going to do in life. And so it's something that I love to do. So I know that regardless to what I chose to do, I was going to have some speed bumps, as I like to call them, along the way. I don't know. Nothing really comes up per se. I mean, I noticed when I moved to New York, sometimes people have issues. We all have our issues. So sometimes if I deal with someone that I feel like they're really negative, because either A, I'm a woman, or because of the instrument I play, or just whatever, I don't feel the necessity to be around them. I find other musicians and other people that are more positive, have my best interest at hand, and that are going to be supportive of me. That's the one thing, that's one of the best things I got coming out of Detroit, was to know that there are so many positive musicians that would be in my corner. So that's who I seek out, and that's who I'm around. Anyone that's negative and got their issues, I stay away from them, because I don't need that.
And in terms of just looking at, for those, particularly we always look at what we can, tools or pearls of wisdom we can share with those who are coming after us. For those out there who are looking at or considering music careers, is there any advice that you would share with them or recommend that they get in terms of foundational as well as survival skills? Yeah,
I think, first of all, you have to love this. You have to love music if you're going to do it, because it looks glamorous. What people see on stage, that's the end product. You're on stage anywhere from a half an hour to 2 hours, but people don't know what leads up to that. And so you have to do all your hard work at home. If you can learn to write music and learn your theory, that's beneficial, because you're going to make your money from your royalties from writing. Learn as much about the business as you can. Hopefully there's a business course in your school. If not, call your local union or just take a business course at a school. because it is a business. And you have to know what's going on in your house, so you're not taken advantage of. And always try and have a positive attitude, because you just don't know who you're dealing with. And it can take you from the time you leave your house till the time you're back inside your house, or whether it be hotel. You are on stage. And people are watching you and your behavior. So we're all role models, whether we choose to be or not. Someone's always looking at us and watching us and learning from us and imitating us. It's just, I always say, all musicians say, we don't get paid to play music. We get paid for all the other stuff that goes into it. You might spend 16 hours on an airplane, and you might only play 45 minutes and turn around and come back home the next day. So that's grueling, to be on that airplane for 16 hours, and you get there and you're tired, but you have a job to do. It's your job. So I just say you have to really love it. If you don't really love it, do something else. And but if you do really love it and want to do it, learn as much about the business, because it is a business and you are a product.
Wow, very important tools and food for thought, and also lessons for us to consider, particularly those who are considering those careers in the music business. And one thing that particularly I know, as we embark on this interview, you're in the process of a tour, national as well as international. If people are interested in finding out more about your schedule, where you're going to be, tell us.
They can go on my website, reginacarter.com, and all my dates are listed. There's samples of some of the music from every record I've recorded, also a video showing the making of this latest record, Southern Comfort. So there's all kind of information they can find there, reginacarter.com.
Wonderful. Well, on behalf of Cultural Caravan, I just want to sincerely thank you so much, Regina, for your contributions to our collective history and culture through the arts. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Louise.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed this broadcast, and we continue to encourage you to tune in, to write, and to tell a friend. But until next time, Louise Dente saying thank you.